Okay, your jaw dropped Thursday morning when that jobs number arrived.
Yeah.
How come?
Well, it was just a lot better than expected. So the employment situation report is what it's called. The employment situation looks good. And 147,000 beat the expectation of about 100 to 106,000. The private sector payrolls gains wasn't quite as strong as a lot of people were hoping for.
And that was a separate report earlier this week?
So the private sector, that's part of the employment situation report. So now we also got the ADP report, which is another private sector payroll number. There's all sorts of data releases out there. And actually, I'm glad you brought that up because they were giving somewhat conflicting indicators. When the ADP number came out, that said that the job creation was destruction of 33,000. Okay. But we ended up seeing 147,000 on net created. And the difference is just who are they surveying? ADP is very much focused on the payroll processing that company does. So they don't process payrolls for everybody. Whereas the Bureau of Labor Statistics, they are trying to get information from basically all over the place, a representative sample of the labor force. And so that was a lot better than expected. The private sectors versus public sector, that's one of these breakdowns that we like to look at in there. Private sector payroll gains were about 74,000, and then the rest was public sector. And at first, it's like, oh gosh, public sector created a decent number of jobs. I thought that DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, did things there backfire. But what it ended up being is that state and local hiring for education was stronger than what we had seen in previous reports, and federal government employment actually did decline by about 7,000.
Who does this give ammunition to for some sort of action on the Fed's part?
I think that really what it does is it means that they are going to continue to sit there on their hands or twiddling their thumbs because they're not quite as worried now about a deteriorating economic outlook. The focus seems to be much more on inflation, as opposed to our tariffs really disrupting economic activity through the uncertainty, maybe crimping profit margins where it's going to weigh on the labor market. Because the Fed, they have the dual mandate. Technically, it's a triple mandate where they are trying to focus on stable prices, full employment, and moderate long-term interest rates. So they always talk about, the unemployment rate. They're trying to make sure that doesn't rise too quickly or too much. Well, this report showed the unemployment rate going down from 4.2% to 4.1%. So they probably looked at it like, hey, you know what? We can breathe a sigh of relief. Maybe we don't need to cut quite as quickly. But the key thing is going to then be, what do future inflation reports look like? Because so far, tariffs, they are having an effect. They're showing up in certain parts, but it's not this broad-based increase in inflation. And provided that we don't see an acceleration in inflation over the next few months, they'll still probably be comfortable cutting again in September. And so basically hitting the play button after this pregnant pause that they've been on.
And our next inflation number will arrive on Thursday the 15th, right?
That's right.
Okay.
So that's going to be the consumer price index. The Fed, they technically target a different one. There's all these nuances. They target the personal consumption expenditure deflator. It's a huge mouthful. But yeah, the CPI, that's the big one because it comes out early and a pretty good indicator about what that other inflation number is going to be.